Good evening and welcome to Let's Talk Shop with Russ. I wonder how many times I've said that over the last 6 years. But hope we have I think a pretty good show planned for you tonight, and we're going to be talking about electricity and wiring in your shop. Now we're not going to get into, and I want to get this up straight right out front before anybody says anything. First off, we're not going to get really technical. Because of liability reasons. And the second thing is that if you don't know what you're doing or mess around with electricity, it's under your own responsibility. Hire an electrician if you don't think you know what you're doing, because you can either get yourself hurt, killed, or burn your shop or your house down if you don't know what you're doing. So if you we're just giving, basically, I want to give some vague ideas because I've had a lot of people contact me. They know that I know something about electricity, and I was a contractor, and asking me some questions. I thought Brenda just went through a lot of having to have stuff wired out there in her barn or her garage or whatever. So she's experienced a lot of this. I think she hates me for doing this tonight.
Oh my God, she's nodding yes.
Yeah. So, hire an electrician is expensive. That's right. And sometimes if you know enough about it, you can do it yourself. But also, when you hire an electrician, I want you to have some things in your mind, your thoughts already ahead of him, that you know what you want. Somebody's got an echo in the background of me. So that's kind of what we're going to go over. Before we get too far, though, let me talk about my wonderful sponsors, DeVolble Technologies, for web design, development, hosting. Visit DeVolble.com. FastCap, innovative product for the professional woodworker. Go to FastCap.com. Rockler, 60 years in woodworking. Create with confidence. Visit Rockler.com. Bearwood Supply Company, your best choice for hard-to-find woodworking supplies. Go to Bearwood.com. Klingspor, the standing specialist, woodworkingshop.com. Seiko, the scroll saw specialist, Seiko.com. And Scrollnado, dust collection for your scroll saw, and you can find them on Amazon. So let everybody go ahead and introduce themselves. And let's start off with Miss Brenda.
Thank you, Russ. I'm Brenda G. Brenda G's Designs, and you'll find me about any place on the internet if you look up Brenda G's Designs. I do a live stream on Thursday night on YouTube with our friend Matt Haas, and it's called Mind Equals Blown on my channel. And we'd appreciate it if everybody would come and have some fun with us. You never know what's going to happen there on the show. And I do a comedy series called Heifer Haven, and I do crafts over on my channel.
Paul
Corliss from Paul's Messy Workshop on YouTube, on Instagram, and here on Saturday nights. And thanks for having me, Russ.
You're welcome. Jim
Bashir's Driveway Workshop. Looking forward to an electrifying evening with everybody. So we'll see how it goes.
I hope we have a shockingly good time.
Yeah.
Al.
Bonsoir. I'm Al Forte, Odessa Woodworking and Maker Shop, Kilroy 79763 on Twitch. And this beautiful scene is, I guess, out the back window of Ozzy Man's home. But anyway, thanks, Ozzy, for sending it.
Cool. Chris.
Hey guys, Chris here at the Old Cranky Workshop. You'll find me YouTube, Facebook. That's about it. I can't be bothered to keep up with the rest.
Recently moved.
And I have been a buzz since this topic was announced. So. I know, I was a groaner.
Thank you. Chris Nealon just gave me a super chat. So thank you very much. I appreciate that. It helps out. It really does. And I did get the Brenda, your glue bot and tape measure in the mail. And the other person's theirs is in the mail also. So I finally got those out after the fiasco of they disappeared. The first load disappeared somewhere into that wild blue yonder of mail for the UPS. So, but I did get those out. But again, thank you, Chris Nealon, and Mr. Steve Good.
Hey folks, Steve Good, Scroll Saw Workshop. You can find me at Scroll Saw Workshop. Just type in Steve Good, you'll find me into Google.
Great. And Dixon.
Hi, I'm Dixon Hoffman. You can find me at Hoffman Signs and Decals. And if you ever work in the trades and you work with a sheet metal guy, don't call him a tin knocker because they don't like it. And if you're an electrician, you don't like to be called Sparky.
That's pretty good. Bob Lee from Bob Lee's Workshop says he made the comment back that he was an electrician for 41 years.
Wow.
Wow. So, wow. Yeah. So we've got Kevin Weeb. Is it Weebly or Weeby? Over on, he's from British Columbia, Canada, watching us over on Facebook. Thank you for being here and watching us. I appreciate that. All the way from Canada. That's a fur piece away there. So, and we have our normal. We have Michelle Marcoux, Jimbo, James Parker, Bob Lee, Dan Inge from Dan Inge Woodworking. Do we have anybody over on? I don't think we have anybody on Twitch.
It shows 2, but I don't see anybody but a bot in me.
Okay. Well, it's so far the last few shows, like I said, it's finally kicked in and the restream chat is working. It's supposed to show me all 3 chats simultaneously if anybody posts. So, and I've got it up here above me, so I should be able to see. And that's how I saw Kevin over there on Facebook watching us. So, oh, and one thing I forgot to do is last week we had the giveaway. I just figured I'd announce it this week on this show rather than posting it over on Facebook. But Nathan Davis from Missouri, he got the Rockler glue mat, and Martin Oliver from Ohio, he got the bench cookies. They were the ones out of we had 52 entries, I believe it was.
Wow.
For that. So yeah, it turned out pretty good. 52 entries. So I will get. I haven't got them sent out yet. I'll get them sent out the first of the week. But yeah, I thought that was pretty good. 52 entries. And I think somebody emailed me, or in one of their emails me, I believe, and said, how do you make the choice of who gets the prizes? So what I do, that email address that y'all use, contest at simplywoodcreations.com. Before I do a contest, I go in there and clear it out, get rid of all the emails so there's no other emails in there. And what I will do is y'all send your emails in. Well, the last person that sends an email is actually the first person on the list. But let's say that I have 35 people that enter. So there's 35 emails there, right? I'll just enter, and since I had 2 prizes, I had the computer thing do me pick 2 random numbers, 1 through, 52, 51 people that we had this time, and it spits out 2 numbers. I start at the top of the list and count down. Let's say it's number 25. Whoever's the 25th email, they get the first prize. So that's how that works. So it's just a random thing through the emails that I get sent in. So that way there's I don't even got to worry about it. It's nice, easy, simple, quick way to do it. And then, like I said, after I get the 2 winners, and contact them and they respond, then I just get rid of all the emails and clear it out for the next contest. So that's how that works. So, all right. So there's a couple of ways of looking at this. If you're going to build a new shop or have a new shop, that's going to be a little bit different than if you have like your garage or whatever that you're going to make into a shop and need to add electricity to it. So that's one thing. You definitely need to sit down with your electrician and your contractor and discuss, if you're going to build a new shop, about your electrical layout and everything in that shop for future use. Now, most home panels nowadays are at least a 200 amp service. I've seen them more, but most home panels now, they're subpanel. In other words, where all the breakers are for all the stuff inside their house are 200 amp panels. And I would honestly suggest that if you're going to build a brand new shop, I wouldn't go for anything less than 200 amps. Yes, you're not going to have that many circuits as you would in a home, because you have lighting, a lot more lighting in a home. You have kitchen appliances. Some of them have, like your refrigerator, for instance, should be on a dedicated circuit. So you would have things like that. But let me explain something to you. It's a heck of a lot easier when you're building a brand new shop to go in there and put a bigger sub panel than you think you would ever need than it is to come back later and add another sub panel. Okay? It's just a whole heck of a lot easier. And so I would highly recommend, if you're building any kind of a wood shop. Now we're talking about a wood shop that we normally, one of us would build. If you're building a commercial wood shop, you're going to have a bigger service than 200 amp. But like Ken Moon's shop, for instance, everybody knows he built a brand new house, and he has it back there. He has a nice little shop. I haven't asked him, but I would suspect he put at least a 200 amp service. He might not have. If it was my shop, I would have put a 200 amp service in there just to have the extra room in case you ever want to add anything else. It's easier to add.
Anyway, does it?
Do what?
It doesn't cost you that much more anyway, does it?
No, it really doesn't. It really doesn't cost you. I mean, you're probably looking at the difference between a 100 amp box and a 200 amp box, $50, $60.
Right.
I mean, you're really not talking about that much more. The wiring going in from the from wherever you're bringing the wiring in is going to be the same. I mean, you know, all that other stuff is going to be the same. So you're just looking at the advantages is having a lot more room to add breakers in case you ever do want to add more stuff in your shop. And so, you know, that's just the first thing that I would recommend. Now, another way, Terry Marker's over there on Facebook. He's from Northwest or Northeastern Indiana. Wow, cool. Thank you. Michelle Marcoux still out there. Jim Dockrell. Oh Lord, Jim Dockrell's in the house. We're all in trouble. We're all in trouble now. So that would be my first suggestion. The next suggestion is you always want plenty of outlets. I don't think you can have enough outlets, so to speak. And because you're always going to find stuff you're going to want to plug in, and some of the stuff you're going to want to leave plugged in. So just make sure that you discuss that with your contractor and your electrician about adding plenty outlets. I would really never go. Now, this is what you would call a single gang box. This is the plastic one with your single gang receptacle. I wouldn't put these in my shop. If I'm going to go for a shop or whatever, I'm going for a double gang box where I can put two of these receptacles in there side by side. That makes it really nice, trust me. And you're not looking at that much more to put the double gang box in there with two of these than you are to have the one put in there. Of course, it's going to affect how many breakers you have because you can only have so many receptacles. I believe it's 10 receptacles, if I'm not mistaken, on 120 amp circuit. So you're only talking about 5 boxes before you have to go to another breaker. But any one of these, anytime I have one in my shop, it's a double gang. It's 4, 2 receptacles in it. That's just the best way to go. If you got tools on a workbench, You got plenty of places to plug in. You don't have to if you have enough of those across there, you don't have to unplug something to plug something back in to make it work. Like let's say you have a benchtop belt sander and a drum sander sitting there. You don't want to be unplugging one to have to plug the other one in. You want to have the outlets that are there so they're always plugged in, so you can just walk up and flip it on. I would highly suggest that. Don't go with any singles. Now, there are probably places where you could put a single or something by a door for running an extension cord outside or something like that. But anywhere around your workshop or your workbenches, go for the double. I mean, it's just that's just the way to go. Trust me, it makes it so much better. All the ones here in my shop and out there are all doubles. I don't have any singles, so that takes with that. So that's just another suggestion. And plenty of lighting. Definitely do plenty of lighting. In today's now that we come out with the LED light, you can put a ton of lighting on 120 amp circuit nowadays. So with the LED lights, they're drawing like the old fluorescent 4-foots, which I still have some of in my shop. I'm replacing as they start going, the bulbs go bad. Rather than putting new bulbs in them, I'm pulling them out and putting LEDs in. But these fluorescents that I have in here, you can probably put 4 LEDs for one fluorescent. That's how much the difference in the draw is on it. So
it's more than that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's more than that. But I'm just saying, it's probably 6 or 8. But yeah, because the draw is very small on the LED. But don't spare whatever you do. Don't spare on the lighting. And let's say that you can't afford to light the whole shop the way you want it. At least go ahead and have, especially if you're going to use these shop lights or whatever, but go ahead to have the receptacle plate put in the ceiling to add more lighting. Even if you don't if you just have the wire in there, and have a blank cover put over it for now so you can wire the lighting later. Because you might not, let's say that you need 15 lights, and I'm just coming out with a number, 15 lights in the shop, but yet your budget says you can only have 10. We'll put the 10 in, but have them put the electric that's already there for the other 5 lights. It's not going to cost that much more to run it right then and there, but if you're going to have to come back and add something to it or whatever, trust me, it'll be more money in the long run than to just go ahead and have that wiring already put in there and ready for it. So that's just another suggestion of mine. He said, Brian Woodward said, I did single duplex. They are 4 foot apart all the way around 42 inches high. Yes, I would have had double duplex 4 foot apart all the way around at 42 inches high. That's just me. That's just the way. I've done enough work, and I've done enough work in shops that, trust me, it's just the way to go. Jim Doctor says 2 single boxes side by side on different breakers. Why would you need different breakers? 120 amp circuit will, if I'm not mistaken, or if I recall, will do 10 receptacles.
It'll do 10. It's 1.5 amps per receptacle.
Yeah. So it'll do 10. So, I mean, you don't have to have that. And here's the thing about it is, I hear a lot of people say, break that down, but all right, let's say that you do want to break it down and put instead of 5 doubles, only put like 3 doubles just to make sure that you're not going to overload the circuit. Think about it though, in your shop, realistically, how many times are you going to have more than one tool hooked to that same thing running at the same time? Yes, you may have your dust collection running at the same time you're running your bench belt sander or whatever, but your dust collection might be across the room on a whole totally another circuit, or it might be 220. So you're not going to have that opportunity to have more than one tool running at one time on one circuit, or even if you have 2 tools running at one time on the circuit, you're not going to have that much of a problem, trust me. So I would just run, like I said, you can have up to 10. And that's also and another suggestion. I would put lighting on lighting circuits with breakers and receptacles on receptacle circuits with breakers. Now in homes, I know for a fact they'll go in and wire a bedroom, and they'll put the receptacles in, and they'll put the lights in, and they're all going to be on 120 amp circuit to run the lights and the receptacles in that bedroom. But that's a home circuit. I don't suggest that. I
John
suggest
Schaffner actually mentioned that John Schaffner actually mentioned that you should put lighting on its own circuit.
yes, you put lighting in a shop on its own circuits, on its own breakers, and then you can put the receptacles on their own circuits on their own breakers.
The 4-foot
Because-
shop LED shop lamps draw 0.3 amps.
Well, what?
They draw 0.3 amps, so you can get about 6 of them on an outlet.
These new LED ones, yeah, they're great.
Yeah. About 6
We-
of them.
We just
We
put,
changed. Go ahead.
we just put
Jim.
some in the basement over here. We're remodeling the basement around that sewing machine. But yeah, I mean, I just ran 14 gauge wire for the lighting circuit and 12 gauge for the outlets.
Yes.
And they
14
hardly
gauge is
they're all LEDs.
Yep.
LEDs.
Even these fluorescents, you can run on 14 gauge wire. You know, they're not pulling that as much as what you would think they would be pulling. I do a lot of lighting, like now all this in here. I just went ahead and run 12 gauge. I wasn't
12 gauge you get to 20 amps on a circuit. So
Yes.
That's all calculated too with non-continuous loads. That's why you can do that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now-
You're not going to run everything except for the lighting might be, but you're not going to run everything all at one time.
That's
If
why
you
on
go
a
12
20
gauge,
amp
it's
circuit, they say you should only run up to 16 amps because that's the percentage. But now talking about LEDs, how neat they are. We changed all the LEDs 3 years ago down at our plant. We're saving $30,000 a month.
A month? Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
That's great.
And we got a big, because we did it because we got a big, it's not a kickback, but from the power company for doing it.
Yeah. Brian Woodward said that's 46 duplexes in my 22 by 22 shop for a total of 92 outlets. So, I mean, you don't have to put them in all. I mean, there are going to be places where you're going to have shelving and stuff. If you're building your own shop, in other words, you're not going to need if you're going to have shelving from the floor to the ceiling carrying wood or paint or something like that. You don't need receptacles there. I mean, you're not going to run them around the whole shop. I've got areas in my shop, like I've got probably a 6 or 8 foot shelving system over there that doesn't have any duplexes in it. It's another 2 foot past that before the first outlet's going to be there. So you don't have to have all many. But my point is you can dang sure bet if you want to plug something in, you've got somewhere to plug it in. You ain't got to sacrifice.
Yeah, and it's that convenience that makes adding the extra.
Exactly.
Like you said, we're not going to run everything at the same time. It's just if you move around in the shop, you want to be able to access it.
All right, let's say I've got the bench thing sitting on my bench sander sitting over here, and I decide, you know what? After using it for a while, it don't work good. I need to move it over there.
Right.
Well, just move it over there. You don't have to worry about having electricity for it because you've already got the duplexes sitting over there waiting for it.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to run your table saw and your sander and your whatever else at the same time. No way. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you have to consider what you can do as your budget. I understand that. I understand that. But you don't have to put the duplex. If you're talking about the receptacles, are only like $1.50, $2 a piece nowadays. They're very, very, very inexpensive. But even so, you can still run the wiring and just not put the duplexes in. Put a cap over it and come back later on. Put them in if you're running into a tight end of budget. So. But I know without a shadow of a doubt, I've been in too many places over the years, and they put something in, and then they call me back and they want to put some more stuff in, and it's going to cost them more money for me to come back and do it than if they'd have done it to begin with. So that's just a point of fact. But like I said, I understand that there's a budget point on this too. Going back through.
Well, that's when you figure out, what you want, what you can afford, and what extra, you can have in there.
That's when you talk to your contractor and your electrician to find out, what this is going to run, and discuss it with them.
Yeah, you can put as many receptacles on one wall as you want. It's the catch is you have to have enough. They call it the 612 rule. If you got a 6-foot wall, you have to have at least one receptacle. If it's 612, if you got 12, you have to have another receptacle on that wall.
Receptacle, Aussie Man wants to know, is that what you call a plug-in point? Yes.
Yeah, plug-in point.
Yes. These are our receptacles, Aussie Man.
Go, yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Aren't yours kind of round with 3 round?
Yeah,
I think there's a different one we have.
Yeah, theirs the Aussie Man's looks more like an oven, like we have here for an oven for the 240. They have the round one, like you were saying, Al. It's round and they're slanted. It looks like looks like an oven that we have here.
A single, a single box with one receptacle in it.
Yeah, I see it. It kind of looks like a 240 plug or something like that. Yeah.
Does it look like this?
Because it is 220, right?
I said, does their receptacles look like that?
They're round like that, and then the ears go on an angle like this, and one down. It looks like a miniature, what we use for the ovens for 240.
Yeah.
Now this is actually can be used as a 220 plug. That's the reason for the difference in on this part right here. That's what. But this can actually be used as a 220 plug. So
Can I share my screen real quick?
Huh?
Can I share my screen real quick?
Yes. What do you want to show?
This right here is what Dixon and I and we were just talking about.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm not familiar with what their actual plugs look like.
Yeah, it kind of looks like he said, like a dryer. Did I share it?
Yeah. No. Oh, yeah, you did. I have to accept it. Yeah.
Like a dryer plug. Yeah, like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And ironically, this side over here looks like
a computer cord.
The normal ones that we have, which
the computer, like a computer.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, see, it looks like that.
Huh. That's the first time I've ever seen that.
Yeah, actually, that's not what I was thinking, but good. Let me stop sharing here.
Yeah. I think this is the outlet.
That's what it looks like.
There you go. That looks pretty close. That looks like I think that's it.
Yeah, I think so too. That's it.
Yeah. That's it. See, ours is just like that for the dryer and washers, but they're for the oven, but they're tipped the other way.
Right.
Yeah.
They're
a lot bigger.
They look like their little eyes are sad. They're slanted.
They call them PowerPoints in Australia.
Yes.
Well, PowerPoint is some software here in the United States.
Yeah.
Jim probably knows this because he's seen it. We work on machines all the time, but over in Germany and other countries, their hot wire is brown and their neutral is blue for their units and that. And over here we use black and white. Now I'm only talking for
blue
the
and
100.
brown.
Yeah, blue and brown, and I'm talking black and white over here for the 110.
Yeah.
Okay, when we get okay, sorry.
So those are just my suggestions if you're building a new shop. I mean, opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one, and everybody stinks. So you can take my suggestion or not. But I've done it too much. I've been around it too much. I've seen it too much that people regret. Even in lighting in new homes, I went into brands. People hadn't lived there 6 months, and I have to go in and add more lights to it because they failed to put enough lights in when they built their house. So it's just things that you need to consider of stuff like that. Now, that being said, what were you wanting to say, Jim?
Well, the company I work for is German, so when they send us little power supplies to help us work on things, they look like this.
Yep.
Okay.
Really?
But included in that, we get these little slide-on kits to put the different things on. So this one is this is UK.
Yeah.
And then this one is Australian.
Yeah.
Does that look familiar, Aussie? And then this one's obviously ours. But see, you take these things and just slide them onto this guy right here. This pops off in theory.
In theory.
Yeah, I hate these things because they stick out on the wall. Like by the time you put those adapters on, they stick out on the wall like a mile. And then this one is a dual pin, and it is Korea.
Yeah, and actually,
So
that's what I was thinking about, kind of roundish like that.
Yeah. Let me go back to one more thing also. Make sure you also discuss this with your electrician and with your contractor if you're building a new shop that you want to. I would highly recommend these outlets we put on GFI circuits.
GFIs, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ground, it's called GFI stands for ground fault interrupter. It will keep you from getting electrocuted in case you have a power cord and you accidentally were cleaning something in your shop and there was water on the floor and you walked into the water holding the cord. And, you know, when I was a kid growing up, my father, they were building a house and they were on the roof decking it and they had to move the extension cord around to the other side to be able to bring it up on the roof to deck it. They sent this young man, he was only I think he was in his mid-20s, if I'm not mistaken, to go down and move the cord. And it just so happened to be it had rained, there was water on the concrete, and he grabbed the cord. And that back in this we're talking about back in the 60s and 70s. That was before I think the 60s was before GFI came out. Anyway, to make a long story short, when he was carrying the cord, he walked into the water on the concrete floor and it killed him. So I would highly recommend adding GFI circuits. Now, once again, that's something you want to discuss with your the electrician and your contractor when you're putting them in. But those will save your life. Now, I do know also years ago, GFI had a lot of problems, especially with some tools. Some of your tools would not work. I had a table saw that would not work on a GFI circuit. I don't know what was up with it, but it just wouldn't work with it. But pretty much nowadays, there's no problems with tools and GFI circuits. And most of your power saws and everything nowadays are what they call double insulated. So if you'll notice, a lot of your cords on your, like I have a DeWalt power saw, 7 1/4 inch. It doesn't even have a ground on it. It's just 2 plug because it's double insulated. So
you can put ground fault breakers in the breaker box too.
Yes, well, that's what I'm talking about, adding them in the breaker box. So now I will say this, that this is not a ground fault, but they come out with now these ground fault actual receptacles, and a lot of people don't realize that these ground fault, this is not one, I'm not saying this is, I'm just showing this as a receptacle. Matter of fact, I have a picture of what I'm talking about, and I'll show it real quick.
Yeah, the GFI monitors imbalances of current between the hot and the ground of a conductor. And insulation and the wiring can even sometimes trip it off.
Yes.
And they go bad too.
Yeah.
Yep, they sure do. There's another one we can talk about after you find that, Russ. It's called a
Can you see my screen?
breaker.
Yep. Yeah. Kind of small though, but
yeah. Here, let's see if I can blow it up a little bit. All right. So this is actually a GFI receptacle there on, it would be my left. I don't know if whatever it is, but it's the square one with the red and the red button on it. That's an actually GFI receptacle. And most of your GFI receptacles nowadays, you can put them in line with other plain receptacles and they'll protect more. I think it's 2. But I've read somewhere that you could go up to 3. So one GFI receptacle will protect 2 to 3 other regular receptacles in the line. So that makes it really, really nice. If you don't have GFI breakers in your shop or whatever now, you can add these to it and it'll actually protect the other receptacles down the line. So Just wanted to point that out. I thought that was pretty good that they had come out with that, or that the receptacles would protect more than one. So, but that goes there. And now we're still talking about new shops. Anybody got any more suggestions or whatever on if you're building a new shop, something that you would want to
get a high-end table saw? You should run a 220 out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another thing you should consider. And not only that, but a lot of your high-end dust collection systems are 220.
Yeah.
So you're going to want 220 outlets. Actually, I think it's 240 now. We always say, but you're going to want them in your shop also in specific places. That comes back to where you have to sit down with your contractor and stuff and figure out where you're going to kind of want to put things in your shop. So, but yes,
theoretically, it's more efficient, which means you're using less power. Not much, but
yes. But you have table saws, you have band saws nowadays that are 220. You have dust collection systems that are 220. You have a lot of stuff that is 220 going in a shop nowadays that you didn't or would not have had before. My lathe that I bought, the Technatool 1624. Can't even think of the name of the company now. Anyway, it's 220. So I had to put a 220 circuit in because I did not have one in the shop in that area where I wanted to put the lathe. I had to run a 220 circuit in for that.
You get that question in woodworking forums all the time, Russ, about how to
What's
get
that?
a 220 circuit. Why don't you tell them real quick how to do that?
What's that?
How to add a 220 circuit? Because you see that question on the forums all the time because people will buy.
Well, if you want to add a 220 circuit, you're going to have to start back at the subpanel or at your panel. Okay. There is no question about it. You're going to have to start back at your panel, your electric panel, your 200 amp outlet, and you're going to have to run it from there. Now, what is going to depend on the size of the breaker and the size of the wire you use is going to depend on how many amps that tool draws. So you will have to find out if it's a table saw, you're going to have to find out how many amps that table saw draws and that it needs necessary. The manufacturer will tell you it needs to be on like a 30 amp circuit or whatever. So let's say you find out that that's a 30 amp circuit. So now you found out it's a 30 amp circuit. So now you want at least a 30 amp breaker in your box and the thing, and you're going to have to run the wire. Well, now you're going to have to figure out what wire will work for 30 amps. That's another thing you're going to have to come up with if you're going to run it yourself.
And the biggest thing to get everybody on if you're doing your own work, or you should consult an electrician, is the bonding when they do a sub panel. That's where they get nailed on the bonding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, 30 amp circuits are average wire gauge 10, which is
30 amp circuits are average wire gauge 10. So here you go. Share my screen again.
Number 2 wire will cover 100 amps, and 2/0 covers your 200 amp.
Here's you a little thing to show you.
Correct. Yes.
So a 14 gauge wire will cover up to 15, 12, 20, 10, 30, 8, 40, 6, 55, 8, 50, 6, 65, 4, 85, 2 AG, AWG 115, and 1 AWG 130 amps. That's the size of the wire.
Yeah, and Brian mentioned.
So I just said you could have, if you had a power saw or a table saw is going to pull 30 amps, you could use 10 AWG wire to run that over to that power saw.
Copper. The point is copper because Brian made a good point. Aluminum, you use a thicker or an 8 gauge.
Yeah, you would have. I wouldn't even consider using aluminum.
Same here.
Yeah, wouldn't even consider using it in a shop. No.
No, you only use aluminum for your mask and your lines and everything because it's cheaper.
Right.
Otherwise, everything inside your house should be copper. Right.
Yes, and you're right. If you use copper, you have to go, bigger as far as with the copper.
Yeah, one of the things with the aluminum is some of the items they corrode. The aluminum.
You have to grease it.
Yes.
Yep. You have to use.
It's called. What is it called?
You have to use no locks on aluminum.
Exactly.
On the lugs, you got to use no locks.
What's the thing when you put two dissimilar metals together it has a reaction.
Yep.
So you're sticking an aluminum wire into a steel holder in the box, and you're tightening it down. And yes, if you don't use a liquid like No Locks or something like that on there, it will corrode over a period of time.
And if you've got a soft stop, you may disable the circuitry that runs the brake.
Yeah.
It's called a galvanic response between the two metals, the two dissimilar.
Two dissimilar. Yeah.
We had that when we built fire trucks. They built aluminum boxes for the cabinets and stuff on fire trucks, but they were being strapped to steel frames on the truck. They had to put like rubber in between the two metals to hold them together to keep the actual, because they had actual problems with cabinets falling off the fire trucks after 10 years from just the aluminum would just disintegrate from being strapped to that metal.
Yeah. You should see the buses in Chicago with the salt in the streets.
But anytime you want to add something like that in your shop or whatever, even in your shop, in your, let's say we're fixing to go to that about garage shops. Anytime you want to add anything like that to your shop, you need to look at what the tool and the manufacturer says that tool needs as far as a power supply. That is the key.
If you're going to use an extension cord, all the rules still apply. You can't use a little tiny extension cord.
Yes.
And you go into a shop, they've got this big receptacle there, and it's got big brown marks coming out of it.
Yeah. If you have to use an extension cord, and you're using and you have that's a good point. Let's say that you have a 30 amp circuit, but you're like 6 foot short getting it to your power saw or your table saw. So you're going to have to use the same gauge wire that's inside that wall that holds that receptacle. Otherwise, you put a smaller wire. You're going to do two things. You're going to possibly burn out the motor on your table saw because it's not going to be able to draw enough current, enough amps.
Yep.
Or you could possibly overheat the wiring and cause a fire.
There's not a year goes by, Russ, that I don't get an email and pictures from one of my readers for a shop fire. 8 times out of 10, it's extension cord problems.
Yeah.
You buy a cord at Home Depot, you got to buy the heavy duty one and look at the gauge because all them Chinese ones are made for lamps.
They're 14 and 12 even. Some of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
They'll also just cause you a power loss, an actual loss of RPMs in your table saw.
Yes. It won't be able to build up as much RPMs. Jim Dockrell says 5 horsepower will draw just over 15 amps on a 220 circuit. So very good. So that's that. Now, if you're in, let's say you're in your garage now, and you're deciding that you're wanting to put your shop in your garage. Your wife has gave permission to park the car out in the garage or out the street. So now you can have both things in the garage, but there is not near enough outlets. And I don't know of a garage that's built. My son just bought a home, and he's only got 2 outlets in that whole garage. I mean, so there's not enough outlets in there. You're going to have to add more.
I got 3.
You got 3. Yeah, so you're going to have to add more to it in there. So you either once again, you're going to have to hire an electrician, or if you know enough, you can do it yourself. So first off, you're going to need to do is go to your panel box, open it up, and see what space is available with breakers to see if there's enough in there that you can add a lot more. Usually adding more breakers in the garage on those circuits on a home circuit is not bad. I've never seen one full. My son has about 4 or 5, at least 4 or 5, maybe even 6 slots where he can add breakers. So if we add 1 breaker in there, he can put 10 receptacles around in that garage. So that's pretty well cool. That's okay. But let's go back and say that you have a garage that was built back in the 1970s, and they only put like 125 amp circuit for the whole house. And you open that up, and every breaker is full. They're all full and everything else. So now what you're going to have to do is add a sub panel to that system. Okay. So
I should go take a picture of what I'm doing here, and then we can throw it up on the screen.
Yeah, that'll be a good idea. Yeah. But now you're going to have to do a sub panel. So, wiring receptacles in a garage is not that big of a deal. It's really pretty easy, and most people can learn to do it and not have any problem. Unless you know without a shadow of a doubt what you're doing in adding a sub panel, don't do it. Hire an electrician.
Yeah.
Okay.
Always consult a professional.
Yes, you're going to need to hire an electrician. You may be smart enough to run the receptacles, but hire the electrician to come in and rub the sub panel for you so that you will have extra slots to add breakers. Then you can add your breakers in and then add the receptacles around the rest of the room. But yeah, you're going to have a sub panel. It's not impossible. You can do it. I mean, sub panels are no big deal. They get added all the time. It's just you're going to have a sub panel in order to add more breakers if that breaker box is full. The same thing applies to if you want a 220 circuit in your garage in your home. You're going to need to have spaces in that panel to have some breakers that are big enough for 220, whether it be 20 amp or 30 amp, 40 amp, 50 amp, 60 amp, whatever. You're going to need those spaces available. So if you don't have that, you're going to need spaces available in your new sub panel. So consider that, how many 220 amp circuits you're going to need in there. Now, if it's a drywall home, you can get by, or drywall walls in a garage, you can get by with going up in the attic and running your wires and feeding them down through the walls and all that kind of stuff. But most home garages, my son's garage, for instance, is all concrete block. So now you're going to have to consider running conduit. You cannot run the wires around the walls and expose them. Okay, that is not going to work. It's going to have to be put in conduit. All right. So the great thing about today is with conduit is they have several different types. Now, back in the day, and I know this is small, but everything that I worked with was all metal conduit. Absolutely all metal conduit. This is a union where you can actually take and put two pieces of conduit together. This is actually only, I think, 1/2 inch conduit, but they make it all the way up to, for instance, this is a joint for I think that's probably 1 inch or 1.25 inch conduit. So they make them all conduits in all different sizes. But anyway, so you're going to have to run stuff in conduit. Now, this, like I said, this is like a union to join two pieces. This is what you would use to put into your game box.
Game box?
Yeah, if you have your box here, and you would put this would screw into the side, and actually you have a little nut right here that comes off. And it runs into the side of this.
It's like Tinker Toys. It's fun to put the stuff together.
Yes. Anyway, so it would look like that to join the wires for the box to run your wires. So the great invention nowadays is they make conduit out of like PVC.
Yeah.
This stuff is absolutely fantastic.
Sexy.
I quit using the metal conduit a long time ago and went to using.
Russ, do you ever use the flexible stuff?
Oh yeah.
Seal tight.
Yes. This is a great
Romex, I believe, and I get them confused.
It's called Romex. Yeah, it's called Romex.
Yeah.
The metal is Romex. The other stuff is what Jim said.
BX.
Yeah.
Seal tight. You run wires
Core locks.
through it.
Yep. To the motors.
Core locks too. Yep.
Aussie Man says it's illegal to do anything AC power yourself there in Australia. So
And that's a really good point because it varies from place to place. Although there's national electrical codes here, whether you can do it or not. Or I would think if you did it and it was within code, you'd be okay. But
no, not no more. Not no more. Every shop's got to have a master electrician.
Well, there you go.
And you can do it now. Still, yet I'm talking Wisconsin. You can do it, but when you get the permit, you have to have the electrician okay it, and you better have that done before you put the drywall on.
Yeah, he's saying the fee comes with 2 inspections, so it's kind of yeah. You definitely need to check locally.
Jim Dockrell said he had to put in a 60 amp sub panel from the chapel to run the house, and it's already full. The stove runs all the way from the chapel, and he needs a dryer outlet. Yes. So,
Wow.
but anyway, but the plastic or the PVC conduit comes in different sizes also. This is like a step over for conduit. And it glues together. It has male and female. It glues together just like regular PVC pipe. I love this stuff.
Just so people know, that's a special PVC. That's not like plumbing.
Yes.
It has to be a Schedule 40.
Yes, it's illegal here in Florida to use regular PVC pipe for electrical use. In other words, it has to be this gray pipe specifically designed for electrical.
Does it open up to an electrical fire or the heat or the temperature? What's the difference?
I think I'm not quite sure, but there is a difference in the composition of this pipe compared to a water pipe. Yes,
that you can soften it up and bend it and curve it if you have the right heater. We used to have heaters when we did niche lighting for pools,
and you do that with a water pipe, and
and it is fire resistant, and you can bury it. You can bury it and it won't rot.
How does it do outside?
Anyway, you got to run that conduit
in the sun.
That's what it's for. It's UV resistant, underground, and it won't rot.
Right. But and also you have the same type of connectors for the you can actually use PVC to metal. For instance, if I had that same metal or connector with the nut on the end of it, they also make these so you can use this along with a metal gang box. So that makes it pretty good. This is just another type of conduit. This is the metal type of conduit connector. And you're going to have to support the conduit on the wall, so you're going to have hangers.
Yeah.
Which they come in different sizes too for whatever size you're going to use.
Yep, one-hole straps.
Yep. But yes, I fell in love with this stuff. I started using this and didn't look back, man. We used this all over the place and really liked it.
And Jim Dockrell says you can't run Romex in a conduit.
Nope.
No,
right.
And that's how I'm going to get to that. Just give me a few seconds.
Yeah, I started the Romex thing. He also said that Romex is a brand name.
Let me tell you, this is the different types. And since we're going in that direction, let me go explain that to you. This is the different types of wiring that we have. Now, this is 12 gauge, 12 to the ground. That's what this is. Let me see if I can try to get, but you can see the thickness of the wire, and this is what the sleeve looks like. I think this will carry 600 volts at like 600 volts at
they're all rated for that 600.
Yeah, 600 volts at something amps. I don't remember exactly what it is, but you can look that part up because I can't remember everything about every piece of wire. Now this is 14 gauge here, and this is what you would kind of call Romex. This is sheathed wire for protection. This is used to run inside of walls and stuff like that. And the reason it's designed like that was this plastic sheath over the outside is to protect the wires. Your wires are insulated on the inside, and you have a ground wire here also. But this outside sheath here is to protect the wires in the walls and stuff from getting nicks or anything on it. So this is fine for running inside your drywall walls. If you have a shop that has drywall or wood frame or whatever, this kind of wire is perfect for that. But if you're running conduit, and this is actually a 12 gauge 3-wire red, black, and white with a ground. So this is in case you need to run a wire for like 2 different circuits. You can use the neutral here, the white wire, with the black and the red to run 2 different circuits into some place if you needed to. So that's what that's for. But anyway, this wire cannot be used in conduit. Two things. Number one, it's hard as heck to pull through conduit because of its solid design. And the second thing is because of this exterior sheeting, it will overheat and actually cause you problems. It can't stay cool enough. So in order to use the wire that you're going to pull through conduit, you have to use stranded wire, and that's what this is. They make it in now the stranded wire for pulling through conduit. If you notice your ground wire on these, you notice because it's in the sheeting, is your ground wire has no insulation on it whatsoever. So when you use a ground wire pulling through conduit, it will be green and it will be sheathed like the rest of it. But this is actually stranded wire. It makes it easier to pull through the conduit. And it also, because it's in single form, I didn't have any black, but this is the green, the ground, and the white and the neutral. This will conform and pull through the conduit a lot easier. And since it doesn't have that outside sheathing on it, it will also, the temperature, in case it starts getting warm inside the conduit, it'll be able to dissipate heat better. So this is what you will need to and have to run inside the conduit. You cannot use the solid stranded copper wire. So just wanted to point that out.
If you want to show people kind of pictures of what we're talking about, I went back and took a snapshot of my. Do you want me to share it here?
Sure. Let's see your sub panel.
Can I say something if I see something wrong?
Yeah, there's plenty wrong with it right now. You guys will probably go when you see it, but I can tell you the history behind it.
You want to see something old while he's doing that?
What is that?
That's my journeyman's card.
1992. Wow.
Back in 92 when I got my journeyman's card.
Wow. All right, I've added yours to the stream.
Okay. So this was our original sub panel for the house, so it's 100 amp. And if the wall over here has an auto transformer on it, so it drops the voltage coming into the house by about 10%, so it's easier on the appliances that have motors and stuff. No, there's no card. This is downstairs about 20 feet from me.
Is there any way to zoom in on that? Is there any way to zoom in on it?
Probably.
Yeah, we want to see if you made any mistakes.
Yeah, make that big. Make that one big. There you go. Yes, baby. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. So power comes in through here, and then it runs through that transformer. It makes a hard left here, goes through the transformer, through all that PVC conduit that Russ loves so much.
Yeah.
And then it comes, there's a breaker box like right on the end of this elbow that I can shut the power off to the house with before it goes into that transformer. Comes back up through here, and then goes on these two. This is like a 1950s breaker panel. So, yeah. So one leg goes in here, the other leg goes in here. So that's my main breaker. So both phases have their own real breaker on it. So in the middle here, you can't see it, but in the middle, there's a couple of taps for each phase and one for the neutral. And that right now runs down into this panel that the people that own the house before us put in so they could run 220. And this breaker was running our air conditioner and the garage at the same time.
Holy smokes!
For a little while, yeah. But now it's split. So, actually, right now it's running this whole panel because I've got all the parts for it. I just haven't put them in yet. So when we're talking about, we were talking about the 220 and stuff. If you look at the way this panel's built, one of the phases of your power comes in on this side, and it'll supply half the box through this rail. The other side comes in on this side, and it supplies the other half of the box. So a 220 breaker like this will actually straddle both of these and get a feed from either side, so it balances the box out a little bit better. And then this box is old before the rules on bonding were around. Yep. So all of the white wires and the copper wires are all on a little bus bar that looks like this. Yes. So the problem with that is that if there's something wrong with a neutral or whatever, you can actually drop 120 volts between, you can have power on your copper wires that way.
Yes.
And if something happens inside a tool or washing machine or whatever, and it gets on the ground, you can actually have a voltage drop on the ground. So you don't want these two boxes bonded together. I don't know. You guys can kind of see there's only 6 breakers in here that was powering up this whole house. And I've replaced
6 breakers for that whole house?
For my whole house. Yeah. So I've replaced everything except this wire right here.
Yeah, your feeder.
Angry monster box.
Do you know what size that feeder is in that conduit?
The feeder?
Yeah.
I'm gonna say double. What?
Okay.
200 amps.
That's what this is a 125 amp box, and I'm gonna feed 100.
Double aught or 2-aught?
I don't know. I'd have to go look at it. I got a coil of it over there by the breaker panel. But so I've been pulling stuff off. So a lot of these breakers were doubled up and stuff too. So I've been pulling those off and putting them in this box. And all the yellow stuff is brand new for the basement. Right. But that's kind of what we were talking about. You can just run a box over here.
I'm kind of impressed. I'm not impressed with the old box, but the new box that you're putting in, I'm kind of impressed that you are keeping the wires straight and nice.
Oh, I used to make control panels, so I'm kind of
what I'm saying.
Wiring freak.
Yeah. I've opened up a lot of those boxes and looked inside and cringed at the wire.
Yeah, no, I believe you. Yeah, I put a convenience outlet here on the side of it and everything, so it's
looks like
but that's it. But that's what we're talking about. So
you're actually going to get rid of the old panel box.
I'll probably just have this will be the main breaker, and I'll just jump right over here, and that'll be it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And try to move everything over there,
Right. Move everything and just have that as the main.
Yeah. Because this is all modern. I mean, if I wanted to get some arc fault breakers, which is another kind of a newer technology that'll detect if you have, like if you put a wire under a rug or something like that, like you're not supposed to, and it starts to break, an arc fault detector will pick that up. A ground fault interrupter won't. Yeah. So. Those things are becoming popular, but they're really expensive.
Yep, they got new circuitry on ground faults that'll actually monitor your loads in and out, and they can tell if you're getting a break in the wire.
Yeah. Yep. So all that's coming.
It's become quite sophisticated.
The old the GFIs we all have in our homes right now, they monitor the input, the current in and out, but they can monitor up to 4 and 5 milliamps too, which is really good. That's why a lot of times you can't. They'll kick out when you put a saw or a hair dryer on it. But they got newer ones that are really crazy.
Yeah, they're doing that leakage current to ground thing. So.
Yep.
But anyway, I'm going to shut this down. But that's, like I said, that's what we were talking about when everybody was describing things.
Cool. It's really good, Jim. I like it.
All right. So one more little thing, or a couple more little things I want to talk about too is now this particular wire here. This is 12, 2 with the ground, but this is actually variable wire. That's what this is designed for.
USB cable.
I'm going to get going, Russ.
Have a good one, Paul.
See you.
Paul.
Good.
But so you could actually bury this cable, which back to this home wire, which is here, is not designed to be buried. It will actually exterior sheathing that protects it will actually break down in this wire here. This will not. So just wanted to point that out, that they do make buriable cable. You don't have to run conduit under the ground. You're taking a risk by running it underground and not using conduit, that if you ever try to dig a hole and forget that the wire's there, you're going to have nicks in your shovel and probably get knocked about 6 foot back. But this can actually be buried without conduit. So
I think it's called UF cable.
Yep. UF for underground feeder. Yep. Nice stuff. It'll last for a long time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I like using it on if I'm going to do like a short run for a receptacle, like for a fountain or something. It's fine for doing something like that. But if you're going to run a fairly long run, I would suggest putting it in conduit because, like I said, 10 years from now, you're going to forget that wire's there and you're going to be digging and you're going to be putting a flower in or something and you know?
Diggers hotline.
And not to mention, you don't know where technology is going to go. You might have to run something through there 10 years from now.
Exactly. One of the other things I wanted to point out, a lot of people don't realize this, but this is set up for line and neutral, and it also has a ground on it. So this would be the ground on your receptacle. Even the little nut, you don't know if you can see it or not, is green. But if you will always remember this one thing, I worked for an electrician during the summer for school for several years, and that's how I learned all the stuff about electrical work. But if you always learn this one thing that he taught me, you won't have any problems when you're putting your receptacle. These screws, one of them silver and one of them's brass. Always remember, bright is white. That's all you got to remember.
Neutral,
bright is white.
It's also on the ground side too.
Yeah, but if you remember bright is white and put the white wire on the bright side, then you'll know where the black wire goes. It can only go one place, and that's over here. So
the other way to think about it is if you look at the outlet, the small
one small and one large.
That's got the hot on it. The large has got the neutral because you want the neutral to be able to carry more power in case there's
the
a
neutral
short.
Is the large and the line is the smaller of the two.
Yep.
And then naturally the third pole down here at the bottom, that's the ground. But I just wanted to point that out about some people don't realize it about those, and he taught me that, and it's stuck in my head forever. So and I've taught my kids that. Always remember, white's bright. You won't have a problem.
This is a little racist, but my dad, like when I was little, he used to rewire a lot of houses with his friends and stuff. So like when I was like 8 to 10 years old, they would take me because my arm was skinny enough to reach through the wall and grab the wire when they were pushing it up from the basement. And he always taught me that he goes, you know, you got to put the dark with the dark and the light with the light, you know?
Yeah.
It sounds like a Star Wars.
Electrical is the most segregated thing in the world. You got to put the dark with the dark and the light with the light.
All right. If you decide, and I do not recommend this, I'm not telling you to do this, but if you decide to venture out and do some of your wiring, you think you have enough knowledge to do that. A few things that I want you to know for number one. Oh, and this is a regular switch. And if you'll notice on a switch now, it doesn't have white and dark color screws, only has screws. Because what the switch does is only breaks the line voltage. So you will have a line coming up here, let's say from the bottom, which is feeding power, and then the wire going here, which is going to your light. So that when you throw the switch, it just disconnects that, so to speak, that line voltage going in there. And you also have on the switch, you will also have a ground. But that's the difference between switches and that. But if you decide two or three things I'm going to tell you that if you don't have and you're messing around with it, you're an idiot for not having them. Okay. And one of these is this little. Okay. There's several of them on the market. This happens to be made by Klein. And what this is this detects electricity. Okay. That's all this does is detect electricity. And you need to know, because I was just talking to Steve this afternoon. I was working in an attic one day on an air handler, and I flipped the breaker down that was there beside the disconnect down that was there beside the air handler. It was actually a breaker to be able to go in there and work on the unit. And so I went into the unit and started messing with it, and pow, it hit me 220 volts. If my tongue would have been between my teeth, I'd have bit it off. I got lockjaw and just had to lay there in that attic for a few minutes. They had apparently had problems with the air handler tripping the breaker, so they bypassed the breaker.
Oh, that is not good.
Yes. So had I had this little jewel, all I had to do is once I flipped the breaker was stick this little jewel inside of the machine, and it will beep and let you know if there's power in it. This one's even set for low voltage. This will even detect down to 12 volts.
Just a FYI, that Klein unit is one of the best you can get, because you got to watch out with the Chinese ones. They falsely read, where that one has a test before you actually run it. So you can see it's showing that that the batteries aren't dead. Some of the Chinese ones you buy at Menards and Home Depot and that does not have that. And then they stick it in a receptacle and they don't know that the batteries are dead.
Yep.
So Klein is one of the safest.
You don't even have to stick this in a receptacle. You can run this along a wire that's hot. You can just run this along the wire and it'll go off.
Yeah, that's the one I've got too. I really like it.
Yeah. So, but you're crazy if you don't have one of this to make sure, because so many times after that happened to me and I purchased one of these, it has saved my ass. Because I would, even though I threw the breaker, I would go in there, and I went to this one house, and I have no clue as to what in the world was going on. I threw the breaker that was going into that bedroom and went in there and checked it, and there was still an outlet in that bedroom that was on. I'm like, okay, so the next bedroom's feeding that one. Shut that one off. Shut that. I had to end up shutting. It was finally the breaker that went into the kitchen that was controlling that outlet. Now, you tell me how in the heck they had that outlet in that bedroom wall was controlled by the kitchen breaker. So had I not had this, I could have gotten myself, knocked again. So this is a must. Huh? No, it wasn't even an old house.
Really? Because that's very common in old houses over the years. So many different electricians and so many different do-it-yourselfers. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, buy one of these. It's worth its weight in gold. It'll save your life. Trust me. The second thing is, if you want to know if you've wired stuff right or have anything wired right, you can buy one of these. Both of these. This is, I think, only around $20, $25. This is not very expensive for this. The second thing is this. Now, this is a little tester that you plug into any receptacle, and depending on how the lights, it gives you a little thing light up. It's got yellow and red lights on it to tell you if the circuit is correct or not. Whether it's dropped to neutral or it doesn't have a correct ground, this will tell you exactly what's going on there. So if you're going to mess around with any kind of electrical in your home, I highly recommend that you have one of these too. Matter of fact, it doesn't hurt to just buy one and go around and plug them into your outlets in your home right now to see if they're all correct. You might be surprised at how many in your home today that won't that are not correct, and this thing will show it in a heartbeat. So that's another thing. Another thing that's good. Oh, shut up! I don't need you on. A good multimeter. That's always a good thing to have. This is not really a necessity, but I would say if you're going to mess around with electric very much, I would own a multimeter.
They are very handy. Yes.
Yeah, and they come in. Different types and different sizes. Now, this particular one is not only a multimeter, but this one you can put around the wire, and it will tell you how many amps are being drawn at that particular time. Yeah. So that's what this one is for. I love this thing also. But yeah, so if you've got a load coming into a house or going to a machine, and you're having problems with the machine overheating or whatever, and you want to find out how many amps that machine is actually pulling, you can put this over the wire and it'll actually tell you how many amps is going through that wire to that machine. So now, only reason I own these kind of stuff is because I've been doing this for years. You don't need one of these to do, but a good multimeter for doing electric around your home. And like I said, one of these especially, everything I do, even in my own home to this day, I took the ceiling fan down because on my front porch, the box had cracked and the fan was drooping. So I pulled the whole ceiling fan down, and put a new box up in it and put it all back together and again. And even though I went through the breaker going to that ceiling fan, I put this up on it just to make sure. So this thing will save your butt, trust me. But
they just turned the switch off in the room. Never trust a switch. Ever.
Yeah, never trust a switch. Yeah. Never trust a switch. Nope. Throw the breaker. And if in doubt, throw the main to the whole damn house.
Yeah.
And don't go buying these $12 or $5 meters, because my Fluke meter is a $700 meter, but you don't need that. But don't use the Chinese $5 or $12 meters.
This is actually a very good meter. This is an old Radio Shack meter.
Yeah,
this is good. Now I'm saying this thing is like 20 years old. I've had this thing for a long time, but I've got a Fluke. Fluke's the best. I have a Fluke myself.
Oh yeah.
Matter of fact, I have to fix my Fluke. The 9-volt battery went dead, but it didn't corrode because I use that meter all the time. And when I went to take the 9-volt battery out to put a new one in, the 9-volt little clip broke. So I've got to replace it inside my Fluke.
Yep, Fluke, you can have a problem, and I had a problem with mine where it's testing high voltages, and I got hammered on 120, and I tested the Fluke. It was the Fluke. I sent it in. They sent me a brand new one.
Yep, but they have a lifetime guarantee.
When I was in
Corey says, do not nail staples in tight either. When you're running the wire down the studs or whatever, you use these U-type staples. Don't nail them in so far that you're bending the wire. They only need to be snug enough so that the wire can't move. It's okay if the wire moves up and down. You don't want it to move left or right to the edge of the 2x4 so it gets stuck by a nail. That's what that's what it's there for. Yeah. And another thing too is anytime you're doing any kind of thing on a receptacle or whatever, make sure that the wire is tight, the screw is tight down.
Because, don't use those push-in.
Because yes, if you'll notice on the back of these receptacles, they have these little holes where you can actually push the wire in. If I can get it. But there's actually holes where you can push the wire in. I never use those. I don't
trust those. Yeah.
I use the screw and bend it around and make sure you get it good and tight because
and the right direction
causes friction as that electricity is flowing through it, and it will actually heat up and it will actually melt this receptacle. So make sure you get that good. Now, I mean, there's a point you could break this stupid thing, when you tighten it so much. Just make sure it is really good and snug.
If you look at all your little wire strippers, they'll have a little tiny hole on the bottom. And what that's for is you stick your 12 or 14 wire in there and you curl it the right direction.
You curl it around.
Yep. You go clockwise when you're tightening the screw, and when it comes off, it'll go counterclockwise.
Yep. So, once again, the disclaimer on this is don't try it unless you have a knowledge of what you're doing.
Always consult a professional.
Yeah, always call an electrician, a professional in to do it. If you
qualified professional.
Yeah, qualified. And that's another thing. Steve, you got a very good point. Don't just go in the phone book and pick the first guy out. Do some research on some of these people because excuse me.
Sparky's service, man.
There are some shady electricians out there that you can hire and get them coming. I will give you a prime example. My next door neighbor, we had a storm come through and the limb went down and took out and fell across her supply going into her home, which actually ripped the weatherhead and everything off of her house. Okay. And took it all down. Well, it actually shut the whole. That's the reason we didn't have a show one night, because it actually shut the whole power down to the subdivision when it went down. She had to have them come and put. It cost her $5,000 to have this replaced and repaired.
Wow.
Okay, $5,000. Well, when she bought the house, the owner of the house before built a garage out back, and he had put in a sub panel in the garage. And had a breaker in the main breaker box to run that sub panel out there into the garage. So they came and replaced it and everything. Well, we've had some people running around the neighborhood and getting into people's stuff. We had a lady seeing a guy go in her shed, and she hollered at him, and he jumped the fence and took off. My neighbor, she also saw a man go up. She has a loft above her 2-car garage. He went up to the loft, and she didn't have the door locked because there's nothing in there, but he went in there and looked around, and they caught him. Well, she didn't. The lock was not working on her door on the side of the shop. She doesn't use her garage, and I have a deal with her. I mow her lawn for her and maintain her lawn, and she lets me use her 2-car garage for storage. So I have a lot of stuff over there storage. So I said, well, we need to put a lock on that. I'll go get the lock and I'll put it down there. There's no problem. I mean, she don't have the money. She just spent $5,000 for to have that power replaced. So I went, got everything, got ready to do it. So I walk into the garage and I flip the lights on, which he has fluorescent lights like in here, right? Well, as soon as I flip the fluorescent lights on, I didn't even think about it, but they start making a funny noise and everything. And I'm like, wow, what's going on with these lights? And then all of a sudden I look over at one, and one of them just starts boiling out black smoke. And I'm like, what the heck? So I turned it off, and I'm like, wow. I said, I know this garage has kind of been old and been around for a while. I'm still never thinking what's really going on. And I said, so anyway, so I said, no big deal. It was there was enough daylight. I could see what I needed to do. Well, the door also not only needed a new lock, but it needs some work. It needed to be planed. It had swollen up and wouldn't shut and close. So I took my old nice electric planer out and I stuck it into the outlet and I pulled the trigger, and 6 inches of blue flame shot out the side of my planer, my hand planer. Yes. And as soon as that happened, I knew exactly what they did. When they put that breaker in, they wired it wrong. And now there's 220 going to every one of these outlets inside this shop.
Yeah.
I immediately pulled that off, walked over through the main inside the shop of her shop, went in and told her, I said, you got some serious problems, and went and got my meter and went back. And sure enough, every 120 outlet or whatever they are nowadays in that shop was wired for 220. It burnt up my hand plane, my electric planer for the door.
A few seconds, that planer ran real fast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I pulled the trigger and went whee, and then blue flame
threw the blades off of it.
Yes, so I told her, and I told her shut the main off, and I got the door and everything fixed. I come and got my hand planer and planed it and got it all fixed and everything. Where I didn't have to use electricity. And I told her, you need to call that company and tell them to get their butts out here, that they've screwed up. And I said, this place could have burnt down, and the garage is close enough to the house. Had she been sleeping, it could have caught the house on fire.
Yeah.
So she called them up and told them and everything, and they hem-hawed about it around it. Well, they sent the electrician out. So, and I told her, if they get there and I'm at home, I said, call me if they get there. If I'm at home, I'm coming over. Trust me. And so she called me. She said, they're here. And I walked over and I told him, I said, yeah. I said, I know what you did. And he goes, what'd we do? And I said, yeah. I said, y'all wired it wrong. I said, y'all hooked up the breaker wrong. You wired the neutral over, and it's running 220 inside all this on these outlets. And he goes, oh, we ain't that effing stupid. We know what we're doing. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, I went over there and threw the main on. I said, take your meter and stick it inside one of those receptacles right there and tell me how much voltage you're getting out of it. And he went over there and stuck it in there, and he turned around and looked at me, and he goes, there's 220 in there. And I said, no crap. Yeah, they had wired it wrong. So that's why I say you need to check with reputable electricians. Now, I'm not saying this company, and I'm not going to say who they were. We're not reputable or whatever, but you got to be very careful about who you hire. That's contractors included. Contractors, electricians, plumbers. You need to do some research. You need to find people that have used them, and talk to them and make sure that they're reputable, because you can run into some big problems.
And don't be afraid to watch them. If they don't like you, watch them, get somebody else. I had an electrician come out to my house one day, Russ, from a reputable company here in town, and gave me a quote on the work that I needed done. And I said, well, okay, that's what I needed. I'll get back with you when I decide what to do. Very next sentence out of his mouth was, if you'll call me after hours, I'll do it for $100 less.
Yeah.
Him, and I said, that you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody's trying to start his own thing. Yeah.
You ain't working on my house.
Well, I hope. Oh, and the other thing that I wanted to show you, if you do want to know anything about electrical, we had talked about this earlier, as far as wire size, amperage, panel size. I mean, this thing is pretty well the Bible for
pretty ugly,
electrical work, and that is the Ugley's Electrical Reference Manual. You can find you can find these. I just looked it up today. Home Depot carries them for $14.95. Lowe's carries them also for the same price. And I even seen a site today that said you can download them for as a PDF form onto your computer. And if you do their little thing or whatever, join them and pay for it, that you next year you can get the upgrade, because they come out this is the 2020 edition that they're putting out right now. So
you can get them on Amazon too, but they're a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. But Lowe's and Home Depot carry these for $14.95. But anything that has all the information you will need about wire sizes, panel box sizes, breaker. I mean, I call it the Bible for electricians. I mean, it's just I have one. It's probably about 5 or 6 years old, because I've been retired for that long as far as out of construction. But I couldn't find it. I looked everywhere for it this afternoon, and I don't know where I put it. Usually I keep it in that box with all my electrical stuff, but it's not in there. So I'm going to probably end up buying me a new one, because I like to have it in case I want to change something. I always refer to that. Although you can most of the time nowadays look up stuff on the internet. I mean, you can pretty well pull everything up on the internet.
You can look up anything.
Hey, Russ, James Parker said he was at the Rockler store, and the manager wants to know how you're doing.
Oh, okay, cool. I'll have to call him and talk to him. That's good that he asked. All right, so once again, if you don't jump out and think that you can be your own electrician and start doing this stuff tomorrow. Ken McCrory's got a good idea. Good thing too. He says codes change every year. Yes, you're right. Codes change all the time. So.
They do.
Yep.
Most of your counties and cities
get a small
run
book upgrade book that news.
Yeah, most of your counties and cities run their electrical out of the NEC, which is the National Electrical Code book. So they pretty well follow that as a standard. Now they have some quirks, trust me. Some of them have a little bit more, add a little bit more, take a little bit from it, but the National Electrical Code is usually the standard that all municipalities use throughout the United States. So,
unless you go to California.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So, anybody got any questions out there? I am sorry, I've been running my mouth so much. I've been trying to look back and see if we had any questions.
There's a lot of good information there for people. These questions that you're talking about, if you read the woodworking forum, they're covered with it. But it's the ones that most people don't know much about, and yet I use it.
Yeah. Running receptacles in your garage with conduit is a very simple, easy task. It's not that big of a deal. When you're going to go put the stuff into the breaker box to hook to a breaker, at that point, I would shut the main off in that box. If you feel confident that you can run those receptacles around and run that conduit and everything and save you a few bucks. But when you put your hand inside that electrical box, shut the main off. You want everything off in there, because all you've got to do is just touch something wrong just a little bit, and you're looking at 200 amps going through a screwdriver or your hand or whatever inside that electrical box. Yeah, do not mess with anything. anything inside that box without that main turned off. I mean, that's just an accident looking for a place to happen. So,
And some of the old wives' tales, like just work on it with one hand.
yeah.
I would tell you some tricks, but I'm not going to say nothing for liability.
Yeah. There's so much.
Oh, I've worked inside of a
ways to do it to steal now.
box. I worked in the veterinarians. We were doing some work on a veterinarian's office, and they was having some problems and couldn't have the power shut off. And I have linemen's, regular lineman's gloves.
Yeah. Before they came out with all the arc flash stuff, I was pretty young. We had to take all the stuff out of our pockets and everything. And I worked inside a substation, and I'm not kidding. The bus bars were that wide, and they were only like 12 inches away from your face, because we had to do some work in there, and it was hot. You couldn't. There's no way you would get away with that nowadays. You got to have your arc suit on and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So
like I said, I've done a few hot jobs. Like I said, do what?
I know you guys just used Lockout Tagout.
Oh, I use it every day.
Yeah.
I've used it right there. You can unplug something, or you can throw a breaker and go in the other room, and guess what? Somebody can turn it back on and put it back
exactly.
If you don't use that Lockout Tagout and switch the right tagouts and everything before you go home, guess what? You're out the door.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got fired if we hadn't used our Lockout Tagout.
Yep.
And James Parker has a good thing. I need thumbs ups, people.
Yeah.
Get off your butt and give me some thumbs up. I appreciate it. Thank you. Smash it.
I like what Brian Woodward said. I learned all my electrical from a book by Black and Decker. And I got my license from Cracker Jacks.
I'm not a licensed electrician. I worked with an electrician for several years in the summer times when I was out of school. My father had me work with plumbers and electricians. He was a contractor, and he built houses. And when he built houses, they built them they laid the block, they poured the concrete, they put the plumbing in. They did everything back in the 30s and 40s and 50s. So he had me work with electricians and plumbers in the summertime. I hated it at the time, but oh man, has it made a difference in my life.
Oh yeah, that's a good experience.
Yeah, most of the stuff. Now, I've never done any real big commercial work. No, as far as big commercial buildings and stuff like that and everything. But all mine's been done as residential, and also for my own home use and everything. But yeah, I've just done a lot of it, and for a lot of people. So and back in the day, they would allow me to do electrical and plumbing under my general contractor's license. That has since changed. The general contractor is like the manager of the building, and you have to have a licensed electrician, a licensed plumber, a licensed AC man. All those people have to be licensed. The general contractor can no longer do it himself.
Wow.
Yeah.
You get a home insurance policy before you do any electrical work.
You be glad you don't work with the big stuff. When I was younger, up on at the paper mill in Thilmanies, they brought the rolls in with cranes up on the roof. It took 7 of us, to pull it across the roof and through the walls. Yeah. It was 500 MCMs. It took us a week. 7 guys pulling it off the roll, stringing it through the mill. That the stuff it's in a jacket, and it's 500 MCMs. It's about that big around.
Wow. But yes,
up in Mass, you can you're allowed to do your own electrical work without a license, which makes no sense to me, because to do your own plumbing, you have to have a license.
Yeah. Now that makes no sense.
I'm sorry, if you screw up the plumbing, you're going to get wet. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the reason
electrical, you burn the house down.
Yeah, but the reason they do that is because of plumbing, because of the drinking water. You're drinking it. That's why.
Contamination.
But you can die. You can get
still
poisoned.
but like I said, they've changed it here now. You have to be Matter of fact, you can't even do, a general contractor can't even do the roof. The roofer has to be licensed.
Yeah.
Now, during the past hurricanes, because of the fact so many people needed roofs and there was such a shortage on roofers and stuff getting them all done, the county would relax, and even the state did too. Here in Florida, relax the law for that even if you were a licensed general contractor, you could do roofs. You didn't have to have a separate roofing license. So I did a lot of roofs during the hurricane, especially in 2004 when we had 4 hurricanes come through Florida.
Doing roofs in Florida, I can't even.
When we were working on our house, we pulled a.
Let me explain something to you. I didn't do the roof.
No.
I hired guys to do the roof. I sit on my butt and watched them do it.
You pointed, do that.
Yeah. I backed the dump trailer up to the job and they'd load it and I'd take it to the dump. That was my job.
When we were working on the house, we pulled the old vent fan out of the bathroom wall. And I'm pulling it out, and you expect to find the conduit eventually spliced into the fan, right? No, we found extension cord.
Oh.
Brown indoor. I plugged the radio in, extension cord.
Wow.
Spliced in
the
through the
steel
wall
mill.
down to the basement, and that was spliced into the conduit.
In the steel mill I worked at, we called it yellow conduit.
Yeah.
SL cable.
Yep.
It was terrible. I'm glad we had the experience. I'm glad we're done with that house too.
Does anybody have any questions that they would like to ask before we get off here? Because it's running. What time?
Take it off. Okay.
9:30.
Hang out. I was going to take off, but I'll hang out here for a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to go ahead and close out.
Okay.
Yep. I just wanted to see if anybody had any questions.
I don't see any.
The only question I've got is, how come I've been wanting to sing "Blue Skies" all evening? Blue skies.
I do understand when we go back to whatever Woodward's name he was singing the 22 by 22 shop. That would be like 96 receptacles or whatever. Yeah, that's a lot. I understand that, and you don't have to have that many. My point is, if you do the layout of the shop, when you're building your shop, you should have an idea where things are going to go. Like workbenches, you definitely want lots of receptacles around workbenches, in areas like that. But so you don't have to have all 96 of them. But I just, anytime I'm doing this shop, there is not a single receptacle in here. They're all double.
There is a question in the chat. When a girl has no name, ask, I have a bathroom ceiling vent that only sometimes works. Why is this?
Because it's broken.
The actual fan itself only sometimes works. The fan motor's probably going bad in it.
Yeah.
It's either that or the wire is not secure in the fan and it's getting partial voltage and running a little bit and quitting.
Yeah. And then I would check that out because it can heat up.
Yes.
Yep. I would go with the first one, though. It's probably old. And
I would say it's old because a ceiling fan goes actually bad pretty quick, a lot quicker than what you think, because of the fact it's sucking all that moisture out of the bathroom when you're taking showers and stuff. That moisture has a big time effect on those motors. Trust me, I've seen them just almost when you pull the screws, they almost fall out in pieces. They're so rusty.
9 times out of 10, the bearings are all rusted out.
She said it also has a light in it.
When it's not turning, if it makes a noise when it's not turning, it's the motor.
Yeah, it's the motor.
If it makes noise when it's not turning,
I would say
if it's humming. If it hums,
I would almost be willing to bet it needs to be replaced.
Yeah, it's just better off.
Gotcha.
It's got a new light switch and wire nut. So I would say it's the fan. It's gone bad. It's going bad.
Yeah, they're not that expensive.
Oh yes, they are. When I was pricing them, some of them nowadays they got LED lights that change.
Well, yeah, I mean you can fancy one.
It actually you can control the light with your phone app and change the color in your bathroom.
You can turn them on with a sauna built in them where it'll rain.
I do not need to be that entertained when I'm in the bathroom.
What the heck?
There's definitely a big range.
This one that I was looking at
You get it
was
for
like
$16.
$200 for this fan. But it was like I said, will it wipe your butt too? You know, for that amount of money.
Do you have a great big bathroom and you're going to disco in there or something?
Yeah.
But if you like your butt, you get it.
One good thing, if you're going to pay that much, it'll be a quiet fan. That's the
Yes.
catch.
Yeah. But my all sincerity, we got a roofer in the house. No worries here. Yeah. But I would replace it. I would almost bet you $5 that it's the fan itself has gone bad. Yeah, they're notorious. They're very notorious for that. All right, since that seems to be the only one, thank you. I hope that we did you good tonight. That y'all were able to learn something and take a little something away from the show. Thank you so much all for y'all being out there. Thank you for the thumbs up and being out there and watching. I appreciate it. Thank you, Brenda and Chris and Steve and Jim and Al and Dixon and Paul Corliss left. He left. So who else did it? Was Paul's the only one that left, didn't he?
Yep.
Yeah, Paul's the only one left. So thank y'all all for being here. I appreciate it very much. There's only one thing we need to do, and that is if you're too darn busy to get out in your shop and make some sawdust, you're just too darn busy. Just give me sawdust, lots of sawdust all around me and everywhere. I like it flying all around my shop and even in my beard and hair. Good night, everybody. Thank you for watching, and God bless.
We need a band with that song.
We
need a band with that song.
Yeah, really.
I keep forgetting to bring my guitar and
Okay,
accompany
folks,
him.
you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
I was waiting for that.
Live long and prosper.
Adios.